Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm an intuitive coach and mentor,
And I'm Louisa. I'm an awakening coach and energy healer.
and we're your spiritual besties.
We're just everyday women having an extraordinary human experience.
You see, we've both been led down the path of amazing discoveries through the power of spirituality.
So, we're here to share our experiences as we dive deep into all things sacred.
Our hope is that we can contribute to the collective conversation to help you feel less alone and more confident as you walk the path to becoming more connected with the universe.
We'd love for you to join us each week as we share our discoveries and navigate this journey together.
The manifesting thing is interesting, though, how quickly you're manifesting things, because I find that there's a season for that.
It's interesting to me, though, sort of the way that it's happening, because I think, you hear that manifestation is letting go of the outcome. It really feels like I'm kind of like manifesting the things that aren't like my main focus. I made my vision board and I'm like, these are the things that I really, really want. And I'm like so tightly holding on to those things and constantly visualizing like, this is what I want. But the things that are manifesting are like the things that it's just like, yeah, I want that too, that's there. Yes, I want that. And it's like, oh, okay, here you go. Like, here's this thing. Here's this thing, and
You're
I,
not tied to it.
yeah. And that's what I think it's just that sort of like letting go of the outcome. Once you're like, this is what I want, then just moving on and just living your life as if that thing's out there, it's coming to you, you're not even thinking about it. And it's so hard to do that with the things that you truly, truly are like, I want this so badly, right? I think that's the lesson that I'm in is find a way to let go of those things. Don't keep such a tight grip and try to control it, which of course by like keeping the tight grip, constantly visualizing, thinking about it, keeping it top of mind every day. It's me trying to control my manifestations is what it is. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm trying to control that outcome and make it manifest. And I think that's the lesson that I'm in right now. You can manifest things super easy.
Literal things. You're
Yeah,
literally
like,
manifesting literal, like images.
yes,
Yeah.
my vision board there are aspects of it that are just turning into reality for me very quickly, but only the things where you're willing to let go of control.
So I hear that you have to want it enough to make it to your vision board. You have to detach from it enough to not control any aspect of when or how it's going to come.
Try to control, right?
Try. I love that. Try, because we don't actually, and still take the actions towards achieving it without the attachment of actually receiving it. Did I get that?
Hey there. What if I told you that I have the exact roadmap that will take you from feeling unfulfilled, stuck, and overwhelmed to living a life that is truly meaningful and filled with purpose? Well, I'm super excited to announce the release of my brand new masterclass called The Clarity Code: 3 Steps to Discover Your Passion and Unlock More Meaning in Your Life. So if you're ready to finally figure out what you're meant to do in this life and how you can feel incredibly fulfilled in your day-to-day life, you can go ahead and click the link in the show notes below. Access this brand new masterclass right now. Yes, that's correct. And I think that the taking the actions toward receiving it, when you have let go of that need, desire, attempt at control, I think that the actions just show up for you in this way. The things that have happened that we've talked about that I have manifested, I wasn't even actively trying to take the actions. It was things showed up for me, incidents occurred that was like, oh, well, yeah, if this is true, then I guess like I need to then do this. And then those things like led to the manifestations coming to fruition, basically. So when you do let go, when you do stop trying to control, the actions that you do need to take kind of show up at your door. And yeah, you still need to do them, right? So you can't ignore the pull or the feeling like, oh, I feel like I should do this thing next, or I feel
Yeah.
like this is the next right move. But that's how it's sort of always happened was, hey, look, there's this thing that will get you to this other thing. And then it's like, yeah, I feel like I should be doing this thing that gets me to this other thing. And then the other thing is like, well, here's what this gets you to. And it's like, oh, that's it. That's the thing that I had wanted. Like, oh, okay. So,
Also, it feels like it just showed up too. Kind of like
right.
the first action just showed up for you to get the thing ultimately.
Yeah.
Then the manifestation just like, hi, I'm here.
Yeah. I still had to take action. I still had to listen, right? I
Yeah.
still had to listen to me and my intuition and what was like, yeah, I think you do need to do this thing. And yeah, I think that this is the right thing to do. I mean, one of my manifestations came through connecting with a person that we ended up being placed on each other's paths, right? And it was like, oh, let's have coffee, let's chat. And then sort of she introduced me to a route to get to this manifestation that I wasn't going into the conversation with that. And then while she and I have kind of maintained contact, not that much, it was at this point, I believe that's why she was put on my path, was to get me to that manifestation. It was just like, hey, here's this person that you can connect with, and they're going to get you to this thing. But at the time, I didn't know that. I didn't know how or how that would work out. But eventually, that's exactly what just happened. Once you do let go, honestly, the things that have come for me, I never even had that tight of a grip on. It was never like, oh my gosh, I need this thing to happen and I need it now. It's just like, oh, wouldn't that be nice if that thing happened? That'd be super cool, right? And then it was like a thought. It was like, oh, that would be really cool to have, or that'd be really cool for that to happen. And then events just showed up in my life. Opportunities presented themselves. I had to take them. I had to move on it. It was like, yeah, I think I'm supposed to do this, right? I just had this feeling like, yeah, I think this is the right next move.
These intuitive nudges. So if you hadn't been listening to yourself, you would have missed the opportunity.
Right. You know, there is an aspect of manifesting where you put that out into the world and it shows up for you. I do believe that that happens. And I think that it's more than you just sit in your room and put all of your desires out there, put them on your vision board, and then just sit there and wait for them to show up at your door. It's not exactly like that. There's still action that's needed in between the two things. But I think that if you are willing and kind of allow it to show up for you, and then you're willing to take those next steps, you'll be led to it. It really will show up for you. It's just you have to kind of keep taking the right actions and keep following your intuition, following that path to get there. So you still need to do some things,
Wow.
but not in the way that we traditionally think we need to do things. And like I said, I'm still learning that. I mean, I've learned the lesson. It's just like implementation is not happening in all areas right now.
No, I think that's fair. I love that you said not happening in all areas because, first of all, implementation, I think in order for us to get good at anything, I think that, like doing it over and over again is what makes it easier. So you've gotten to a point where like you're manifesting pretty fast because you've done it over and over again. And now it can happen a lot faster because it's easier for you as you listen to yourself and as you allow things to come through and take the actions and don't just sit in your room and eat bonbons and wait for them to happen. But I do like that because I think that repetition is an important part of it. But I think a lot of us have the idea with manifesting that it's like I put it out into the universe. I said it all out. I said it once. And why isn't my new car here?
Right. Right. And I think that that's where manifestation gets a bad rap because I
Yeah.
think that people, they hear manifestation and they think like, oh, so you just think like you're going to put it on a vision board and then it's going to show up at your front door in 2 days. That's not how the world works. And it's, yeah, it's not. And in some ways, it actually is. It's just that there's some steps in between, right? Typically, I think, I mean, for most of us, it's not just like put it out there, put it on your vision board, and then it just shows up in your life magically. Like it does. And you
Yeah.
also will need to take some action and like follow, your intuition, follow like this inner knowing that you have to develop the skills to rely on, right? That self-trust. So it's putting it out there, but also like leaning in and taking the actions that kind of show up for you to take along the way to get there.
I 100% agree. And I love this topic because I do think that manifestation does get a bad rep, like you said. And I think that's absolutely why. Is the idea is just like step one and then manifestation arrives. And like most other things in life and this human experience is like, well, there's step one, and then there's the steps in between until it gets there. And I feel like a lot of the steps have a lot to do with us, even though we're not controlling it because we can't. The moment we try to control things, I think when it doesn't work,
Mhm.
but I do think that it's not controlling it, but rather taking the actions, and the actions that we need to take are so much based on what, in my opinion, what we need to learn to be able to arrive at that manifestation, what we need to experience and who we need to become before we receive that thing.
Mhm.
And there's all of that that gets lost in the middle
Mhm.
in a lot of the talks about manifestation, where some people just see it as a black and white thing. But in reality, there's a lot of gray, because if you're not willing to take the actions, if you're not willing to do the work and put in the time and the energy that is required for you to listen to yourself, for you to learn and acquire the wisdom, the knowledge, the gratitude
Mhm.
that it takes for you to be the person that receives that manifestation, then I think that's why a lot of people don't receive it and then are like, well, that just doesn't work. I was like, oh, doesn't it? Because a lot of us, it does work for a lot of us when we're open and we're receiving and we're listening. And I think self-awareness and listening to our intuitive voice and following our intuitive nudges, that's the action piece that you mentioned, is an essential part of receiving manifestations. And one of the main things that I've learned so far in this journey that we call life is I receive it, whatever it is, once I've become the person that's ready to
Mhm.
have that thing. Because a lot of times when I first think it, want it, try to manifest it into existence,
Mhm.
I'm actually not prepared for it. And not that there's anything wrong with it, right? I think that's part of the journey,
Mhm.
is me becoming the person that's ready to receive it. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that that's where I've said this before, where I think that it's not like hard work or manifestation. It's not like an either or situation. It's both. But I think that there's some distinction there because the hard work isn't like spinning your wheels, trying to get something, constantly focusing on this goal and doing whatever it takes to get there. The hard work is the work on yourself. And you just described why. Because the hard work is, working on yourself, working on becoming the person who's ready to receive that manifestation. And that is where the hard work piece comes into play because it is really freaking hard to become the person who's ready to receive the thing that you're trying to manifest. it is hard work to let go of all of the limiting beliefs that you're telling yourself that keep you from receiving the thing. Because ultimately, that's what it is. It's because you are subconsciously telling yourself that you shouldn't get it. And so the hard work is getting yourself to believe and
Yeah,
know that you
sure.
are a person who deserves to receive the thing. And
Yeah,
so I think that that is where the hard work comes into play. And I think it's a both situation
yeah,
because it is hard work. It is hard work to truly manifest the big things that you want in life because
yeah,
it's hard work to become someone different, essentially. Not
yeah,
not different from like who you are, but just really to actually become yourself, fully yourself.
yeah. And it's funny that you say that it is hard work to become who you truly are. One of the things we've talked about recently has been how I feel like I'm going through another transformation. And I think part of the reason why within that manifestation process, it can be hard to become the person that basically come more into yourself
Mhm.
to be able to receive that is because there's a death that needs to happen. Like there is a literal death of some aspect of who you've known yourself to be
Mhm.
that has to die in order for this new and actual closer version to your true self to come to be, because we need to make space for something new. There's already so much. There's so many components to who we are spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally, that in order for us to receive something, we have to make this space for it, which means that we have to get rid of something.
Mhm.
And what we have to get rid of are the limiting beliefs, are all of the ideas of the societal norm, the pain that we associate with that thing. Because I think it's a lot of different things depending on our own traumas and life experiences
Mhm.
that we need to rid of to be able to become that new version of ourselves that is now ready to receive that manifestation. And I think what holds us back most as a collective is pain. Like that's painful. So we're like, whoa, I don't want any pain. So like I'm not gonna work through that. Um, and understandably so, right?
Mhm.
I think a lot of us sometimes can forget that this is the first time on this planet's history for most of our lives that we have the freedom, all of the freedoms that we have, especially us as Americans, right? But when we think about the history of it, most of us have experienced some sort of pain, wars, and some of us are past murderers, some of us are past, you know, all of the horrible things that we like to think as other than that we're not, other people are. We have been. And whether we have been the victims or whether we have been the aggressors, which we've probably been both throughout our lifetimes, there's pain, whether it's from this lifetime or another lifetime, there's so much pain. And we're scared of that. And rightfully so. Pain can be painful to experience, and pain can be really hard to get through and work through. But it always brings you closer to your true self. It always brings you closer to who exactly you are at your core because it forces you
Mhm.
to see all of the things that we have been trying not to see about ourselves, all of the things that we don't want to acknowledge, all of the hurts, all of the patterns that we're like, did I really allow 10 people in my life to do the same thing to me?
Well, I think even just in this lifetime, the beliefs that we've picked up along the way in our lives, those internal core beliefs that we've held on to for so many years, most of us, they become who you are. That is who you are. You are whatever beliefs you're holding inside of you. And so I think that your analogy of that death and rebirth, it's so true because you have to let that version of you die, essentially. All those internal beliefs, all those things you've held on to so tightly, and who you've really become, that person has to go. They have to go away.
You
And
do.
that's painful. And
It
it's
is.
really hard to do if you want to become this other version, if you want to hold new beliefs about yourself and about the world around you, you literally have to get rid of that other version. And so that's the hard work. That is it.
It is. It totally is. As you're saying that, I had this crazy thought. And I'm like, you know what? I think maybe we should normalize the grief that comes with that dying version of ourselves. Maybe we should just create sort of a little ceremony for the versions of ourselves that die throughout our lifetime. Because if we're continuously growing, as ideally we are, because we're continuously evolving, then let's create some little ritual, a little ritual where
Mhm.
we say goodbye with holding loving space
Mhm.
to that version of ourselves. And I think that maybe if we can start to change our perspective on that, hey, yeah, she died, but it was time for her to go. It was time for that version of her to go.
Right. And I think there's some celebration too, because I
Yes.
think that without that version of yourself, you wouldn't have gotten to this place where you are, where you're able to then create a new version to have this rebirth. So that, too, I mean, it makes sense. That's what we do for other people in our lives.
You're so right. This is what came to mind as you were saying that, like celebration. I think that it's called this sacred shift celebration of that death of ours, celebration of that part of ourselves that died so that we can now celebrate this new version that's coming up. And that's what the shift is. I think also like an aspect of that is worth talking about is the grief aspect, because I think we don't accept, until recently didn't really allow myself to grieve the version of myself that just died. It was more devastating for me every time.
Mhm.
Growing up, the way that I thought about funerals was like, oh my God, this is such a devastating event. But it's like, no, it's a celebration of someone's life, like you said. I mean, we all know we're gonna die in this lifetime, right? Like we're all fully aware. What it is rather is a celebration. And I think it's okay also to allow ourselves to grieve that whatever part of ourselves that dies. Because like you said, it's more of a celebration of who we are becoming, of us being open, of us expanding, growing. And in terms of manifestation, of us opening that new door for those new things that we want to bring into our lives, that we put on our vision board to
Mhm.
create and to come in. Us opening the door, creating that space while letting that other version of ourselves go, and holding loving space for it to move on to where it needs to be, which is in our past.
Mhm.
That's a wrap for this episode.
We hope you found some inspiration, a helpful tip, or maybe just a good laugh.
Remember, amazing human, you are not alone on this path to connect with your inner wisdom and the universe.
To stay connected and keep the conversation going, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast so you never miss an episode.
And if this episode resonated with you, share it with your friends, family, or anyone who might find value in it. Until next time.